perfect storm in many ways, except that our CEOs are not greedy and they're not overpaid. With this as a background, let me talk about the DCPA, the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. It's a bit confusing, and most people in Denver confuse us with the Denver Performing Arts Complex, which are the buildings downtown that include the Venture Concert Hall, the Buell Theater, the Ellie Calkins Opera House, and the Helen Bonfils Theater Complex. The city owns the complex. The Helen Bonfils Foundation built the Helen Bonfils complex and was the largest contributor to both Betcher and to the Buell, and then gave it all to the city. We at the DCPA rent back the Helen Bonfils complex, which is the one that has the ballroom in it, for $1 a year for 50 years because we contribute it to the city. We manage it, we maintain it, but we're renters, the primary renters of the Buell and a major renter of it, L.A. Calkins. But the DCPA is about theater. That's what we do. That's pretty much all we do. And let me tell you about it a bit. First, we do the Broadway tours. Those are primarily in the Buell and sometimes in the Ellie. To give you an example of some recent shows, we have Jersey Boys, Color Purple, Chicago just all recently. We have coming up Phantom of the Opera, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Wicked, Spring Awakening, and a number of other things. But that'll give you some flavor of what we do, one part of our operation. Another part is our theater company that produces and presents our own productions. We recently did The Miracle Worker, Christmas Carol. We're currently doing Shakespeare's Richard III. We're doing 2 new plays that are somewhat controversial, called Nana and Dusty. And then we have coming up Quilters, August Wilson's Radio Golf. It's a African American play. Then we have also the National Theater Conservatory. The National Theater Conservatory teaches theater. It's a master's, an MFA program, accredited by the same folks who accredit DU and CU. And we compete with Yale and Juilliard and compete pretty well. It's a fascinating program where we only admit 8 students a year. They pay no tuition. They have a very intensive course in all aspects of being on stage. They then participate in some of the theater presentations that we do in the theater company. And then they do their own shows. They have coming up Macbeth and Cloud 9. It's a very interesting program that almost nobody in Denver knows that we have. But it is better known in New York than it is in Denver, which I guess would surprise you. Then we have the Denver Center Academy. The Denver Center Academy is for kids from 3 years old up through teens and then adults. We have a summer camp with 1,000 students that teach theater, and they do it very, very well. We are sold out every summer, and we're trying to figure out how do we do more, but we don't have the space or the people. But anyway, it's great fun for me to watch little kids come in and shy, and literally in the 6 weeks, they're totally different people and very, very impressive people. We also do programs in the elementary schools in the region and also in high schools. And then we have student matinees where we lower the price a lot so kids can come. Now, where are we going with this by way of background? The idea and our mission is to produce world-class theater in Denver. To do it as well as anybody in the world does it, as well as anybody in New York or anybody in London. And for those of you who've seen some of our things lately, we're pretty much doing that. And we're getting recognition across the country for the quality of what we do. Then we also want to be, and I think are well on our way to being, the leading center in the country for new play development. We just had our summit, New Play Summit, where we invited leading people in theater from around the country to come to Denver to see what we were doing. And we presented 4 new plays that were read. This is their first kind of exposure. And then we did 2 new plays that were fully produced so they could see what we do with a fully produced production. It was an enormous success, and one of the, if not the leading critic in the country, said that he thought we were now #2 in the country in our new play development. We'll see. These things take time, patience, and producing new plays, as some of you would know, is quite an undertaking. You know, you start out with an idea, then the playwright works on it for a year, and then you bring it in and you read it as we did this time, and you get feedback from the audience, and you can see reactions from the audience. Then you change it again, and then you try it again, and finally, if you think it's got it, you produce it as we are with these 2 new ones and see how the fully produced one goes. But to give you an example, we did Plain Song last year, which we developed from Harrow's novel, Plain Song, the best-selling novel in the history of Colorado. And we turned it into a play with 52 scenes and 30-some characters. Nobody thought it could be a play, but it was a huge success. But there were 9 major revisions to it before we finally presented it. And even after we put it on stage, little differences in timing in the dialogue made a big difference. I mean, literally, remember Jack Benny? Some of you will remember Jack Benny. But you know, he was so good at timing, and the same thing is true on the stage. So as we experimented, the play evolved over the time that we had presented it. It was really, for me, a great deal of fun because I went often to see what's it going to be like tonight. And again, it's a huge success, and we'll go on to other theaters in the Almonson, in Los Angeles, Guthrie, in Minneapolis. We did another play last year, Lydia, which is now playing at the Yale Rep. It was a controversial, but I think a quite interesting play. Anyway, and as I have wondered why it is that the theater is so engrossing, so compelling as it is, I've been in the television business and in the movie business, and honestly, live theater is better, you know, and I wondered why is that? It's more engaging, and recently Collins, who wrote the Good to Great, wrote that there are 2 kinds of people in the world. One, those who don't know anything about live theater, and the other is those who are passionate about it. And I think the principal reason is how much it's honed. You know, the kind of process I'm describing would never be done for a movie or a television show. Typically, in a movie, the actors will see the script the night before, and then if the scene doesn't go right, they'll shoot it again. Whereas in the theater, if you're on stage and you fluff 2 lines, it's the end of your career. So we practice